Do you want more podcast subscribers? It all starts with improving the quality of your content. Today, we're talking about how you can perform better interviews on your podcast. Let's get into it. If you're new here, welcome to Mark Savant Media, where you're gonna learn how to create better content in less time so you can get back to what you love. All right, let's get into the video. The first step to performing amazing interviews is to bring on guests that you're actually curious about. Don't make this mistake of bringing on guests just because they have a lot of Instagram followers or they got a lot of YouTube subscribers. Bring on guests that you're actually curious about. People are gonna hear your interviews and they're really gonna resonate when they know that you're talking to someone you're actually interested in. You can tell when an interview is forced, but if you're genuinely curious about what they're doing in the world and the influence and expertise they bring, your interviews are gonna sound much better because you're actually gonna be interested in it. It's important also that that guest you're bringing on is actually relevant to your audience. So if one week you're bringing on someone that's an expert chef, and then the next week you're bringing an expert internet marketer, how does that actually line up with your audience? You're actually gonna hurt your subscriber count, because if I show up one week and I love it and I subscribe, and then next week the guest is someone completely off the wall that I'm not interested in, you're gonna hurt your podcast. So don't do that. Try to stay with people that you're curious about that are relevant to your audience. I hear this all the time when I'm on Clubhouse, when I'm talking to podcasters. They're always saying, my show is for everybody. I just bring on all of the great people that are doing something amazing with their life. Listen, there's 7 billion plus people on earth. If you're just bringing on people that are just interesting to you or that are just trying to improve their lives, you're gonna miss the mark. You gotta focus on who my audience is and who are the people that can provide value to my audience. Stick to those people. And again, stay curious. We're gonna get into preparation here in just a moment, but it's really important. Great interviews and interviewers are able to bring out information that's never been shared before. You see, when you're bringing on a guest onto your show, they're often gonna go into this kind of like monologue. They already have these set patterns of things that they say. You'll hear this from great speakers. They're gonna have dozens of 3 to 5 minute monologues. You want to try to throw them off balance. So as you're preparing, as you're listening to content that they've created, as you're watching videos that they're on, you're always going to be looking for, how can I go a level deeper? How can I get them to share something that's maybe putting them off balance? This is going to make for a great interview that people are going to love listening to, because you're getting something out of their biggest creator or author that they've never heard before. If you can get them to share something they never shared before, my friend, that is what you want to do. Now, when I'm preparing for an interview with someone, there's a few things that I like to do. I always like to go into an interview with an outline of potential questions. That doesn't mean I'm going to ask them every single question. You don't want to be too scripted. However, it's good to have something to fall back on in case there's a dead space in the talking, in the chat. You want to make sure that you can keep the interview going. You want to make it feel natural, but you also want to have an interview style that has some notes that you can go back to. You can also take notes during the interview, which we're going to talk a little bit more in just a moment, because right now we're focused on preparation. So when I'm bringing a guest on my show, I'm always going to listen to their podcast or their podcast episodes that they've been on. I'm going to consume their content. I'm going to go to their Instagram page, go to their LinkedIn page. What is this person actually interested in? What are they talking about? What are they focused on that is going to really resonate with my niche and with my audience? And how can I draw that out of them? So as you're doing your preparation, you also want to make sure that they're doing their preparation, which quite frankly can be really difficult. I recently had John Lee Dumas on my show. You can actually see the entire interview here. But one of the things that he said, one of the biggest mistakes that podcasters are making is that they're not preparing their guest for the podcast. They're not properly educating their guests. I actually have a unlisted page on my website, marksavantmedia.com, where new guests that are coming on the show can actually go, they can watch a video, they can read some text that is going to explain exactly what the format of the show is. For example, make sure that you have a mic, make sure that you have headphones, make sure that you have light facing you instead of coming from behind you. So there's a lot of different best practices that you can give to potential guests on your show. Some of the people coming on your shows are going to be pros. They're already going to have it down. You know what I'm saying? But there's going to be a lot of guests that have no freaking clue even what a podcast is. Right? So make sure that you're properly educating your guests. You don't want to overwhelm your guests with information, but you want to make sure that they at least have the basic tools so that they sound good, they look good, and they're ready to chat to your niche. This is something that I always ask people. It's one of the first questions I ask when I'm going to be a guest on a show is, who's your audience? Who is this for? Because I want to make sure I'm catering my message to that audience. Again, if you're bringing on a professional chef, you want to explain to them, hey, this is actually not a cooking show. It's actually about how to market your business. So for example, you'd want to say, we're not speaking to chefs, we're speaking to marketers. You know what I'm saying? So make sure that you educate your guest on who your actual niche, who your actual audience is. It'll make them more prepared, more ready to deliver the value to all of your listeners. A couple minutes ago, we were talking about proper preparation and making an outline. This is really important. If you've been consuming their content, listening to a couple podcast episodes, maybe watching a video or two, you're gonna have a list of questions that you actually want to know about. And it's really important that you put together an outline of those questions. We also talked about throwing your guest off balance. This is something that Tim Ferriss does really well. If you haven't before, I would encourage you, listen to a couple episodes of the Tim Ferriss Show. Maybe not the entire episode because they run long, but listen to the first 5 minutes. And something that Tim does really brilliantly is he always starts the question off with something really bizarre or off the wall, something that maybe you've never heard before about the guest. If you can start off by throwing them off balance, it's gonna lead to a better interview. So now that you've done your preparation, you're on the line with your guest, there's a couple things I recommend doing before you even get into the episode itself, okay? One thing I always ask my guest is there anything in particular that you're really plugging right now? Do you have a new book, a new video? Is there a web page? It can come off as really salesy if you're just plugging everything. Like I have probably a dozen different links that I'd like people to check out. You can't do that in a podcast episode. It's just gonna confuse people. I like to focus on one key link, one key call to action that I really want my listeners to follow, maybe two. But if you go in there and you start plugging 6 to 7 to 8 different things, you're gonna bore your listener. I'm not listening to a podcast episode because I wanna know all of the links for the guest, right? That's what the notes, that's what the description is for, okay? But what I do wanna know is what information can this guest bring that's gonna help me improve my life? You know what I'm saying? So really focus in on 1 or 2 things, and I always recommend asking the guest before you start the interview. Another thing I like to confirm with my guest is, I've got you locked in for 30 minutes. Does that still work for you? A lot of times they'll say, yeah, that's fine, we can go a little longer. They might say, I have a hard stop at 30 minutes. Be respectful to your guest. There's nothing worse than ticking off your guest before you've even started. And I find that when you ask these questions up front, you're gonna make that guest know that, hey, this host really cares about me. I'm gonna really give it my all. And again, this kind of like quick education for your guest can be really, really crucial. All right, so we talked a lot about preparation, but something else that's important is the actual hardware that you're using. Do you have the right mic? How are you actually recording the episodes? Like, if you start off your episode with 15 to 20 minutes of just flubbing around with the hardware, or if you make it too complicated, like, do you want to use the phone? Do you want to use a stream? Do you want to meet in person? Like, pick a lane, right? Pick a lane and stick to it. So what I'm using to record all of my episodes right now is a program called Riverside FM. I strongly, strongly encourage it. Not only is it going to give you high quality video, it's also gonna give you high quality audio because it's gonna record locally on both sides. So what that means is that me here in Florida, if I'm interviewing someone in California or in India or in South Africa, wherever they are in the world, it's actually gonna record it locally on their side. So you're gonna get basically maximum quality audio and video on their side and maximum quality audio and video on your side. In my opinion, Riverside FM is the best way to record virtual interviews with guests. I've used Zoom, I've used Skype, I've used a number of other programs that I'm not gonna shout out right now. You should definitely check out Riverside FM. And guess what? I've got a free trial for you right below in the comments. Check it out. It's a free trial. If you like it, great. If don't, cool. It's free trial. So check it out. Link below. And I appreciate if you click it because it helps me just a little bit. So check it out. So you've got all your hardware, you've done your preparation, your guest is ready to rock. So let's get into some best practices while you're actually in the interview itself. So first off, you've got your notes, right? But you don't want to stick to the notes like they're the Bible. You want to practice active listening. This is an incredibly important concept, and quite frankly, over time, you're gonna get better and better and better at this active listening. And what active listening means is that you're not just reading off a script of 15 different questions, you're actually asking a question, listening to their answer, and then digging deeper into that topic. This makes it much more enjoyable for you and your guest, but it makes it 10 times more enjoyable for the listener. There's nothing worse than listening to a podcast which just asking questions. It's too mechanical. You don't get enough personality. You gotta practice active listening. And so one of the things with active listening is that sometimes guests will give you a ton of really good insights when they're going into their answer. They might give you 3 or 4 or 5 different things that you want to know more about. But if they're going into a 3-minute monologue, you might actually forget what they're talking about. So one of the things that I like to do during my interviews is take notes. And when I'm saying taking notes, I'm not saying going back to 7th grade where you have to write down every single note that your proctor or teacher is telling you. I'm just saying make like 1-word notes, right? Make these 1 to 2 to 3 word notes as they're speaking to you. And then at the end, when they're done speaking, you can reference back to that word and you can go a level deeper into that particular topic. This takes practice. Again, taking some brief notes, incredibly, incredibly important for you digging deeper and getting that information that's never shared before, right? You want to throw them off balance and you want to dig deeper into these concepts. So please take some quick notes. At the same time, if you are there just jotting down note after note after note, well then the person's like, this person isn't even thinking about me. He's freaking texting Sandra Bullock on his phone, or I don't know, whoever. Insert whatever celebrity you want. So the guest is thinking, this person isn't even interested in me. The interviewer just keeps writing and writing and writing. That's why you want to keep it brief, you want to keep it short, but you do want to take some notes during the interview. Another thing you might be considering while interviewing is when should I interrupt the guest, okay? And there are times where frankly you have to interrupt because there have been interviews where this person just going on and on and on about something or getting completely off topic. At a certain point, you got to cut in and be like, hey, let's go a different level deeper. Like, or you might say, oh, I really love this concept. I want to go a little bit deeper on this. And then you can ask your question, right? You don't want to just barge in after they've been talking for 30 seconds or 60 seconds, but at a certain point, you need to break in, you need to cut in, you need to keep the dance going. You know, an interview is, in my opinion, very much like a dance. It goes both ways. If one person's just dancing there and you're just watching and listening, it's boring. Well, I won't go any deeper into that topic. Another thing that is incredibly underrated is bringing your personality to the show. Your personality is what makes you unique. It's often been said that people come for the guest, they stay for the host. And if you're just a mechanical, boring android that's just repeating the same stuff, you're giving no emotion, it's gonna be whack. I'm telling you, you gotta insert your emotion. And you might say, oh, well, Mark, I don't wanna ostracize my listeners. I want everybody to love my show. My show is for everybody. Wrong. Your show is not for everybody, okay? What makes you unique? What is different about you? Why should I listen to you versus this other person, okay? And if you can insert your personality into what you do, it's gonna just make for a tremendously better listening experience. This is highlighted no better than an episode I recently did with Jasmine Star. She's just an incredibly influential creator, millions of followers, millions of listeners across multiple platforms. And one of the things that just blew me away with Jasmine is how much personality she brought to the episode. I'm gonna put a link right here. I would encourage you to check it out because you're gonna be blown away, not just by the information that she's sharing, but because her personality just rings through and it makes it extremely attractive to listen to someone when their personality is just really digging in deep. So I'd encourage you to check out that episode. Lastly, have fun. You gotta have fun when you're doing your interview. If you're bored, your guest is gonna be bored, your listener is gonna be bored. So keep it on task, keep it on point, make sure that this person is speaking to your listeners, but have fun. Forget it. Listen, we're podcasters, we're after hours entrepreneurs. If you're bored, if you're not having fun, it's gonna be really hard for you to keep your episodes going. The reality is that the majority of podcasters don't even make it past episode 7. So by the way, if you're past episode 7, leave a comment below. Let me know how many episodes of your podcast are live. If you're past 7, congratulations. You are beating the curve. I know that you're gonna rock it, especially if you keep listening and consuming content like we're producing here at Mark Savant Media. You're gonna be wildly successful with your podcast. So I want to give you another quick tip on how you can create some very unique content. I've said this several times throughout today that you want to get questions answered from your guest that have never been answered before. You want to bring out their personality. You want to make it fun. You want to make this content actually interesting and exciting. So one of the ways that you can do that is by asking them rapid fire questions at the end of an episode. Okay, I love doing this. Rapid fire questions that the guest can answer in less than 30 seconds. And it could be everywhere from, do you prefer coffee or tea, to what time do you wake up, to is chocolate underrated? By the way, I love asking underrated, overrated questions. I find you just get some amazing answers. So definitely consider inserting a rapid fire or underrated section to the end of your show. And listen, if you're looking for more ideas on how to improve the quality of your interviews, you definitely want to listen to the After Hours Entrepreneur, either here on YouTube or on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts. I'm always experimenting with new things, and I know that you're going to enjoy those, and you can actually mimic some of the things that I'm executing on my show. I'm always trying new things. And listen, if you're serious about getting more podcast subscribers, I've got a really great video specifically designed to help you grow. Smash this link right here, watch the tape, and keep growing your podcast. I'll catch you here next time on Mark Savant Media. Have a great one. Peace.